Cinderella, Aladdin, Jack and the Beanstalk. Stories everyone knows. Japan has one too, Momotaro. But this one may not be fiction, it may be history. A real warrior, a real war, and a woman no one talks about. A woman China recorded. A woman Japan erased. You've seen this story before. In One Piece. The version you know is simple. A boy, a demon, a victory. The version underneath is not. In the Wano arc, a boy named Momonosuke is the rightful heir to a stolen country. Two rulers control it. Kaido, a horned monster on an island called Onigashima, and Orochi, a serpent who took power from within. To take it back, he gathers allies, a monkey, a dog, a bird, and one girl who can turn enemies into followers with dumplings. If you know the story, you see it. This is Momotaro, but that's only the surface. This isn't a coincidence. The structure is the same, character by character. In the original tale, a boy born from a peach travels to Onigashima, the island of demons, to defeat the Demon King. He does not go alone. He recruits 3 companions with Kibi Dango, a dog, a monkey, and a pheasant. In Wano, the pattern returns. Momonosuke, peach-named, peach-clothed, travels to Onigashima to overthrow Kaido. At his side are the same old figures rewritten. Monkey D. Luffy, the monkey, Inuarashi, the dog, Mako, the phoenix, the bird, and Otama, whose dumplings can turn enemies into followers. That is the Kibidango. Then there is Orochi, not the Demon King, but the corrupt insider, the collaborator, the man who helped power change hands from within. His name comes directly from Yamata no Orochi, the 8-headed serpent of Japanese myth slain by Susanoo in Izumo. Wano is not loosely inspired by Momotaro. Once you see that, the next question is unavoidable. If Wano is Momotaro, what was it based on? There is an answer to that. In Western Japan, in what is now Okayama Prefecture, the Momotaro story does not begin as a fairy tale. It begins as a campaign. A prince is sent west. He does not go alone. He goes with 3 companions, and there he fights a being remembered as a demon. This tradition survives in Kibi, and at its center is a figure called Kibitsuhiko no Mikoto. According to the ancient chronicles, he was a prince, a son of the 7th emperor, sent west as one of the 4 road generals to pacify Kibi. With him were 3 companions whose names survived in local tradition: Inukai Takeru, the dog, Sasayu Morihiko, the monkey, Tomuru Tamaomi, the pheasant. The enemy was called Ura, a powerful figure remembered as monstrous, red-eyed, and associated with a mountain fortress now known as Kinojo, the demon's castle. That fortress still exists in Okayama today. In the tradition, Kibitsuhiko defeats Ura, and after the battle, Ura's severed head is said to have been buried beneath the sacred heart of Kibitsu Shrine, where it groaned for years. A ritual connected to that story is still performed there now. The pattern is no longer vague. The fortress is real. The names remain. The war was remembered. And yet even here, something is missing. Because the standard form of the story remembers the warrior, but not the woman standing beside that world, who was Kibitsuhiko's sister. There was one, and she was not a minor figure. Her name was Yamato Totohi Momozo Hime. We have met her before on this channel, under another name, Himiko, the shaman queen recorded by China in the 3rd century, the ruler who governed through spiritual authority. The woman Japan's official histories never named directly as Himiko. The theory that Himiko and Yamato Totohi Momozo Hime were the same person is not fringe speculation. It has been one of the most serious scholarly theories in ancient Japanese history for more than a century. And the reason the theory has endured is simple. The details keep lining up. Her burial mound, the Hashihaka Kofun in Nara Prefecture, has been dated to roughly 240 to 260 AD. Himiko is generally believed to have died around 248 AD. The dates align. But that is not the most important part. The most important part is this. According to the Nihon Shoki, Yamato Totohi, Momoso Hime, and Kibitsuhiko no Mikoto shared the same father and the same mother. They were sister and brother. Think about what that means. On one side, the woman who may have been Himiko, the shaman queen recognized by China as the ruler of Wa. On the other, the warrior prince remembered in Kibi tradition as the man who brought the western land under control. Sister and brother, one ruled with spirit, the other with the sword. One gave legitimacy, the other enforced it. Together, they may have done what later history split apart. They may have been the two halves of the same unification. She made rule acceptable. He made resistance costly. She gave fractured kingdoms a center they could acknowledge. He dealt with the regions that would not submit. And if that reading is right, then the story preserved in later tradition did not erase everything. It preserved the war. It preserved the brother, but it left the sister at the edge of the frame. That matters, because once you see these two figures together, the next question changes. It is no longer only who Momotaro was based on. It becomes something larger. Were the wars remembered in Kibi part of the same age of conflict that Chinese sources describe as the Great Disorder of War? That is the next question. And it matters because the timeline does not stand apart. It overlaps. Chinese sources describe a long period of unrest in ancient Wa. Not a single battle. Not a brief rebellion. An age of disorder. Kingdoms fighting each other. Power breaking apart. No stable ruler able to hold the country together. This is the period later known as the Great Disorder of Wa. And according to those same sources, the violence did not end because one kingdom crushed all the others. It ended when a woman was raised up as a shared ruler, a shaman, a queen, someone whose authority could be accepted across divided regions. That woman was Himiko, now set that beside what survives in Japanese tradition. Not the same language, not the same emphasis, but a strikingly similar world. Regional conflict, campaigns of pacification, resistance in the outer lands, military force used to bring fractured territories under a single center. In that world, Kibitsuhiko is sent west into Kibi. Other traditions remember other campaigns elsewhere, and taken together, they suggest something larger than a local legend. This is the point where careful language matters. We cannot prove that the war remembered in Kibi was identical, event for event, to the disorder described in Chinese sources. But we do not need certainty beyond what the evidence allows. What matters is that the patterns overlap, the chronology overlaps, and so does the political structure. On one side, Chinese records preserve the moment of resolution, a divided land accepting a woman as its center. On the other, Japanese traditions preserve the campaigns, the resistance, and the military side of bringing regions to heel. China remembered the ruler who ended the disorder. Japan remembered the wars that made such rule necessary. China preserved the queen. Japan preserved the campaigns. And if that is true, then something important follows. The story of unification was never fully lost. It was divided. One part survived as political memory. Another survived as military tradition. And later still, part of it survived as folktale, which means the question is no longer simply whether Momotaro has a historical core. It becomes harder than that. When later Japan remembered the making of the country, which half of the story did it choose to keep, and which half did it push aside? If we place Yamato Totohi, Momoso Hime, and Kibitsuhiko side by side, a pattern begins to emerge, not a conclusion, a pattern. A woman whose authority came through recognition. A man remembered through force, both present, but not remembered the same way. The woman remains, at a distance, a name, a ritual. The man becomes story, the campaign, the victory. Over time, what is easiest to tell remains. What is harder to see moves to the edge, so the absence we see is not empty. It is the outline of what once stood at the center, still there, just harder to see. Now look back at One Piece. Momonosuke is not alone. He has a sister, Hiyori. She remains inside the country, hidden, surviving, not leading armies, but still there. And Orochi, not the Demon King, but the one who took power from within. The structure is the same. The warrior, the usurper, the hidden heir, the sister. Whether intended or not, the pattern holds. The story changed, but something underneath it did not. Japan's history is full of stories like this. Stories that survive, stories that change, stories that forget. And sometimes, if you look closely, you can still see what used to be there.